Hi, everybody, and welcome to the January Supper Club. We are so glad to have started the Supper Clubs from 2023 and continue our conversations about faith in our ordinary lives, taking faith from Sunday to Monday. Last month, we covered the topic of the spirituality of parenting, or spirituality of the relationship with children, how to incorporate our faith with our families. This month, we are talking about spiritual friendship, or spirituality in the ways that we are growing in our friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a topic that we think is really important because friendships are in our lives, but they don't always connect with our confidence about our faith and growing in our faith. So we're going to explore that a little bit on why this is important.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you may have friends that you met here at church, that you're sitting in church with for that hour, and then you go out to lunch and don't talk a thing about your spiritual lives, or talk about where's God in this, or so it's a rich topic and a little more complex than as we were talking about it.
Right.
So thankfully, we have a friend to help us with this, Rabbi Adam Morris, who many of you will know. Rabbi Morris has preached here at Montview. He's a friend of this church, and he's also a personal friend. You two are friends, and Adam and I are particularly have developed a friendship that I think we would both describe as a spiritual friendship. So it felt like a good fit to kind of talk about this. It's a complicated dynamic of what do we mean, and what's a spiritual friend and what's not. So let's go with an easier kind of intro. Just our friendship. Let's just talk for a minute about we met as colleagues, talking about sabbatical, as I recall.
Sure. I was about to take my first sabbatical and reached out to another Montview connection, Jeffrey Mahan. I don't know if Jeffrey, if you're
He
watching.
might be out there.
But hello
Yeah,
out
I think
there.
they do have a supper
Probably
club.
is.
Jeffrey said, Ian just took a sabbatical. You should talk to him, and maybe
He's
you might hit it
amazing.
off. You're kind of the same age. And it was that networking, and it was that, hey, he knows something you might know. But neither of us knew of what lay beyond that conversation. That's almost the nature of the spiritual friendship. It's not something you can plan for. It's not something you can say, okay, we're going to have the spiritual conversation and make our friendship spiritual. It's something that there's almost kind of a wonder and peace beyond us that you
that's
have to
interesting.
approach and be open to.
Little chemistry or a little mystery or a little grace that's brought two people together.
And not necessarily assuming, yes, we have the same professional life, but
Right.
I'm Jewish.
Right. Wouldn't
You were
necessarily
Presbyterian then, I know you are now. Christian, yeah.
Christian.
But you wouldn't necessarily think that we would reach that spiritual level. But,
So what makes it? What do we mean by that? What makes it spiritual as opposed to
A
just
friend.
a friend? Yeah.
Right.
And let's not diminish friends. I mean,
sure.
that's the foundation of so much what we do.
Right.
But there's so many different ways we friend, and they all feed us and fill our those
for sure.
our lives. But the spiritual piece, I think it lends to or leads to being able to go to questions of meaning without any meandering, without any roadblocks, and you just jump in.
Yeah.
And there's some people, I think that's the nature of it. There's just some people you can do that with.
Right.
And
Fair to say, not many.
in my experience,
Yeah.
maybe that's a fault of mine, I don't know. I don't think so. I think that's the nature of it. I think just finding those people and being open and aware to it, and not closing yourself off to, well, it won't be him because of these reasons. It won't be her because of those reasons.
Well, it's vulnerable to talk about God, to talk about your faith, to talk about questions of meaning that are big for you. I mean, and I have a lot of good friends, but I don't necessarily talk about all those things with my good friends. We might have things in common or we enjoy each other's company, but to make that pivot to saying, well, where is God in this? Or if I'm discerning a job change or something, it's like having a friend that you can say, no, really pray for me in this, or help me to discern where God is moving me in my life. That's a different conversation
Very much
to
so.
have with ordinary friends. And I would also add that sometimes that person with whom you can have a really meaningful conversation or talk about God or your spirit isn't necessarily the person you want to hang out with. And they're not necessarily your friend. Do you know, like you may not have dinners together or do these other things that
Your
you would
families
think of
don't
as
get
friends.
together
Exactly, right. You're not raising your kids together, but they have a set apartness relationship with you that is different, perhaps.
There's a shared worldview with the person. At least with when I think of with you, it's got to be shared enough at least. So even though you're Jewish, I'm Christian, you'd think there wouldn't be a lot of overlap. But our worldview and what we're and our sense of wonder and mystery about the world and the way God works or whatever that mystery is, the way that works in the world, is close enough that I can trust enough that I can bring what I may not even know how to articulate quite yet, and bring it into the space. It's at least safe, so there's some acceptance and trust, and often, an understanding of, yeah, I know where you're, and then that juice happens.
Right.
There's a part that's out of our control. There's a part that, okay,
happens.
yes, we see the
magic.
world similarly. But then there's a part that's very much in our control, and I think it's how we hold or create the space together.
Yeah, that's good.
That it's just not judgmental.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
just whatever's here is
That's good.
here. And it's not that I don't have non-judgmental relationships with other friendships, but that part of the recipe. You have the ingredient of non-judgment, but then the ultimacy, those questions of meaning are part of that too. And to do it, I think to do it, all the alignment, to do it in the way that we do it with our language, our specific language may not be the same, but the way we use language is similar in
There's a
approaching.
similar
Yeah,
language,
that's good.
similar worldview. And I would say for us, it's, as you said at the beginning, we jump right in. It's intentional. I know when I'm going to have lunch with you, we're not going to spend the whole time just talking about our kids or our families. We'll check in on those
Baseball.
things, or yeah, you would like to talk about baseball the whole time, but we are. It's not only okay to talk about it, but it'd be a little weird if we got through 2 hours or something and didn't talk about it at all.
Go a little deeper.
I would
is what
think.
you
I mean, sometimes we've gotten together and but I think there's always well, it's just a joy too. I guess part of it's just I want to. I want to share. I think maybe this is to back up a bit to say, why do we need spiritual friends? And one of the reasons I think is that we're all hungry to have our deepest selves known in that safe space, and to ask the questions that we're not sure. Maybe you're having doubts about your faith, and you're saying, I'm not sure I buy this anymore, or whatever it is. And you've got these friends that are a little more traditional about holding some certain worldviews. That's scary. So are there spaces where you can really be known? Because otherwise you start to get more isolated and lonely.
Can I invoke Bill Calhoun? Can I invoke Bill Calhoun? Because I don't know if he said this, but it feels like something Bill would say, is that to drink from your spirit, like to have your spirit kind of quench something.
That's great.
In me.
Yeah. This is former co-pastor Bill Calhoun, for those of you who
And that's a Pauline quote from 1 Corinthians.
Oh, it is?
12.
Okay. So
Yeah, that we drink of one
I
spirit.
guess I got the text.
There you
I'm
go.
happy.
You got the text.
There's our text.
Without
There's the
knowing it.
text right there. Yeah, the epistle to the Corinthians. So thinking about the different kinds of friendships, it occurs to me that paying for someone to be a spiritual companion, a spiritual director, I mean, that is one way of having someone enter your life and pay attention to things of the Spirit, asking where God is. And so, and I think that's a very,
valuable.
very valuable relationship to have. And another way is to seek out someone that you think, this is a very vulnerable thing to do, but if there is someone in your circles that you think has the potential for going deeper, and you really are desiring a relationship with someone that can talk about things of the Spirit, to actually inviting them to coffee. Or if you do have a friend that you think can go there, but neither of you have broached
Haven't
that
tried it,
topic,
taken the risk,
taking that risk, that you could say, okay, so here's the thing. I would really like us to meet regularly to actually talk about meaningful things, not just our kids.
Well, I think that's the challenge in this, is taking from Sunday to Monday. How do you
right.
actualize this?
That's
And
right.
It's hard because there's not a three-step piece. It's
That's
those things you're suggesting is opening up your worldview, both eyes and heart, to say, okay, who or what is out there?
Yeah.
And then cautiously, gently being vulnerable. And I would even suggest you're saying, let's meet regularly. If you're not doing anything yet now, just meet once and see how it
just
feels.
open that up,
Don't
yeah.
set it up to this, okay, we're gonna have this conversation, this coffee, and
Yeah,
it's
we're not taking
meaning
off.
and life question solving every time. Just start with the next step. And
Or another little safer space, maybe, I'm not sure, would be to not just have all the pressure on one friendship. So invite just to have 2 or 3 people where you're gathering together in a small group to say, so that there's a little less, I'm expecting you to
Right,
meet
right.
these needs. There could be 2 of you, and so the 3 of you or the 4 of you
Yeah.
meet once or then start meeting regularly. But it's that, one, the riskiness of being vulnerable to say, this is important to me. I'm looking for it. I'm hungry for it. Do you want to try it? And then the intentionality of saying, yeah, that we're going to sit down and be that, talk about those kinds of things.
and the humility of allowing it not to happen. Because I think part of this is that
Holding it loosely.
it has to be organic, natural. There's faith, there's trust in that.
And it may not.
And it may
it's
not,
okay.
and it's okay, but having the faith and trust that I'm gonna keep putting myself out there. I'm gonna pay attention to places or people I'm not imagining this could be,
Yeah.
and allowing that possibility.
Yeah.
Because I think this is bigger than us to a certain extent.
Yeah.
The Spirit's at work guiding this
Yeah.
in some way,
I
too.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a practice that we're encouraging you to think about seriously, is to build relationships or build a relationship with someone that really focuses on your spiritual growth. Like, that's an intentional practice, and I think we want
Something
that
you
happen.
could pray about or be intentional about, of wanting this in your life, put it out there. Also thinking about how would I be and am I a good spiritual friend, and what am I doing to be a good listener, to create that open, safe space. It's I think part of this supper club can be about having a chance to reflect on your own your own ability to do this and where you are as a spiritual friend to others. And
That, I don't know, what came to mind is that it doesn't have to even be so practiced as, oh, let's set up this meeting to have this conversation.
Yeah.
But just to enter into the friendship relationship you have with a different level of curiosity.
Yeah,
And
that's
put the
good.
questions out there and see,
Yeah, just kind of go that
and
direction a
see
little
what
bit.
happens.
See what
Without the agenda, okay, you're going to be my new
Right.
spiritual friend.
Right.
But in those moments, put out the question. Maybe at a dinner table with
At a
more
supper
people,
club.
and see at a supper club, and see who and what the responses are, and then make a note. Like, oh, I'm going to follow up with you.
Yeah,
we're
that's
gonna,
right.
We're going to grab
Well,
a drink.
cup of coffee,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's
That's
good.
good.
So why is it important to have a spiritual friendship? What are we getting at here?
I think all the different kinds of friendships do something for us. They feed us, they sustain us in different aspects of us. But we're talking about our spirituality, our faith. There's this wonderful teaching in our tradition that says when 2 people sit and exchange words of Torah, that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, sits with them.
There you go.
Interesting.
And so we need friendships. Torah, let's not limit it to just the text, although the text can be fun too. But Torah is these questions of essence, of meaning.
Yep.
And so when you sit with a friend and exchange these words, these questions of that, you invite God's presence. And that's what you're talking about. You're trying to move from Sunday, where it's obvious we're singing, we're doing all the stuff, and God's there in church, to Monday when we're driving down Colorado Boulevard. So that's why we need it.
Right. And in the Christian scriptures, when two or more are gathered together, Jesus says, I am among you.
Okay. So,
Same presence of the divine.
Anything
So we
else?
have some questions for the group for tonight. I think a good question would be, have you, or describe a relationship where you feel like has expressed a spiritual friendship or a spiritual companion? And can you share what that relationship was like and why it felt like a spiritual friend or companion?
That's good. I'm always taking the negative side, but I'm curious, I'd be curious to hear about a time where it didn't go so well, because I think there's a lot of fear and vulnerability around this. And I think if we're going to be honest about it, that's part of it, is we probably all have places where we did lean in and it didn't work out so well. And so just sharing a bit about your own journey, maybe positively and negatively, about leaning into this. And
Well, and here's a step even more vulnerable. Is it something you desire in your life? Is to have a spiritual friend or a spiritual companion to go deeper in your faith, taking faith from Sunday to Monday into the work week? Share that with your group tonight.
That's great.
That might lead to a coffee or something. Adam, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah.
Thanks for being Ian's friend.
Thanks for being my friend, my spiritual friend. Thanks for, being nice to her. It's been great. All right.
Have a great evening.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.